Lee Scratch Perry, who has died aged 85, was one of Jamaica's finest and most unpredictable record producers, as well as a much-recorded singer. But perhaps his greatest global legacy was the profound effect he had on the king of reggae, Bob Marley. As a singer in the Wailers with Peter Tosh and Bunny Livingston, Marley had experienced a modest degree of success in Jamaica before he came into Perry's charismatic orbit in 1970. Hooking up with Perry changed the way Marley saw things, pulling him away from the measured harmonies of a trio towards something more heartfelt. Urged on by Perry to take a more spiritual approach, he copied some of Perry's vocal phrasing, built a new, bass-dominated sound and, with Perry's help, began to release a string of new songs, such as Soul Rebel, Duppy Conqueror, Kaya and Small Axe, that would propel him onto the world stage. Although Perry and Marley parted company on poor terms before Marley really hit the big time as a solo artist, it was Perry's free-spirited unorthodoxy that drew the best out of the younger man. Essentially a layman in music circles, Perry came up with ways of doing things that would rarely occur to trained musicians, and which they regularly rejected as unworkable until they tried them and found to the contrary. His adventurous, shamanistic spirit brought him to the very top as a reggae producer in the mid to late 1970s, when he ruled the Jamaican music scene from his fabled Black Ark studio in the capital, Kingston, creating critically acclaimed and popular records with artists such as the Heptones, Junior Byles, Max Romeo and the Congos. His tiny 12-foot square workplace, cluttered with strange artifacts, produced a signature sound like no other, as distinctive in its own way as Phil Spector's famous Wall of Sound. The Ark was also one of the great cradles of dub music, where Perry, along with his collaborator King Tubby, got under the bonnet of reggae, stripped it down to its bare essentials and reassembled it in new form, adding a cacophony of sound effects, reverberations and electronic exclamation marks. The golden years came to an abrupt end in 1979, however, when an overworked Perry, always deeply eccentric but now increasingly unhinged by the consumption of unwise amounts of ganja and rum, burned the place down and walked into the wilderness. Perry had always trodden a thin line between genius and insanity, and was an enigma throughout his life. Born into harsh poverty in the rural Jamaican town of Kendall to Ina, Mae Davis, a field laborer, and Henry, who worked on the roads, he left school early, living itinerantly and making a precarious living in the northwest of the country as a professional dancer, dominoes player and bulldozer driver.